square back away.
Well, I can certainly fill
task,
including my husband. I can walk forever if needed. So I just want to welcome you guys to the Doodle Institute. I know a lot of you, I think this is your first time here, it was your first day here, so thank you so much for coming. For those of you who don't even know really what we are or what we do, we are specifically stood up to support Air Force Research Lab Munitions Directorate, which is located on Eglin Air Force Base, and in particular support them in technology transfer, workforce development, specifically here more in terms of like future workforce development, so like STEM camps, robotics competition support. And then our third main drive is innovation and collaboration support for the lab. And so that's kind of where we come in today. I am one of the innovation and collaboration principals. My name is Jessica Olson, along with Steve Bailey right here. And we started this initiative along with the Junior Force, which is a component of the Air Force Research Lab Munitions Directorate, or RW as we call it, to have these monthly meetups where we not only try to get collaboration among the people in the lab, but then try to see if we can not inspire people to collaborate with the community around us. So we wanted to see if we can have a meetup that kind of caters to everyone. So this morning we had Donuts with DI, which is something we actually have weekly for the RW folks over at the lab. But it was sponsored by Amavita Coffee, who's actually here today. Still might be outside right now. So I want to thank them for that very much. They will actually be here at our next Think Thursdays in June doing a coffee demonstration and tasting. We also had an improv workshop this morning where we learned a little bit about how to apply improvisational skills to communication and public speaking. And then this afternoon is the beginning of our afternoon series, our very first Unexpected Inspiration series. And the thought behind that was, if we're trying to inspire people at AFRL, we don't necessarily have to use some of the technological or scientific speakers in order to inspire them. Perhaps they can be inspired by something unexpected. And one of the first things that came to mind when I moved to Destin, that was something that I noticed all over the place, was BOTE, stand-up paddleboards. You see the logo everywhere. I think a lot of you have probably seen it, and if you haven't, you'll definitely recognize it now. You can see the logo. We'll talk a little bit with Corey in just a few moments here. But that was something that inspired me just in general as him being a local entrepreneur. And then I found out that he used to work for the lab. So I found that really interesting that he used to be an engineer in the lab, broke out, became an entrepreneur, and has such a great, I think, success story that we'll hear about here soon. And then finally, to wrap it all up and keep it all local, we have Third Planet Brewing, which is located here in Nextel, and they're going to be serving us afterwards for a happy hour, tasting, talk a little bit about how they started their brewery and how that kind of can inspire you as well. And then during that happy hour, which we are dubbing the debrief, we will have a discussion in here, actually through a teleconference with the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. So if you're interested in that or interested in hearing more about that, how that applies to you, how you can get involved, we'll just kind of reconvene back in this room if you're available. Otherwise, feel free to ask any one of us with these name tags, the Doodle Institute employees, for a tour of the space if you haven't seen it already. Ask us how you can get involved and start collaborating with the lab, anything of the sort. So I don't know if I took up enough time. I can certainly take up more.
No, you're close. It's just for some reason it's Wi-Fi network.
Well, I lied about being able to take up too much time. Well, you know what? No, that's perfect, because now that you guys are all here and you see the space and see all the things we're doing, I can tell you about next time. On June 21st, we are hosting our second Think Thursday, where, as I mentioned in the morning, we will have Amavita Coffee Roasters actually doing a tasting and demonstration. And then in the afternoon, we are having Richard Whittle, who is the eminent Predator drone and B-22 historian. And he is coming to talk a little bit about the innovation and rapid development that led to the development of both of those devices, as well as just innovation that he's seen in general at this time, kind of doing all of this inspirational research in the background of a lot of Air Force history. So he'll be here in the afternoon, and then again, we will have a local beer sponsor. As of right now, it should be Crocs, who is opening a few doors down. But again, we will announce it as we have been on our LinkedIn page, our Facebook page, Twitter accounts, website, all of the above. And so I want to thank those of you who have pre-registered. Continue to do that, send the link out. I know, talking to Lacey, a lot of the interest that was generated from this was definitely from people forwarding emails, so keep doing that, get the word out there. We have a lot of space, we can clearly fit more people in here, so let's try to do that next time. So I really appreciate those of you that are here. Again, I think I've talked enough, but I can keep, I'm not even kidding. I have the July schedule, I have the August schedule.
Talk amongst yourself.
Absolutely, yeah, maybe now I do that. Well, so really quickly in July, we have our Small Business Fusion Workshop, which is also going to be part of this Think Thursday. It's going to be a little different. Instead of these kind of pre-structured things, it'll be workshops throughout the day that pertain to SIBR proposals, small business administration, I believe will be and for the similar audience of the whole gamut of small business owners through AFRL engineers and scientists. And then in August, we have Colonel Ken Poole, who will be here again to talk about innovation and his experience with SOCOM and how that pertains to rapid development, rapid innovation, integration, adoption of all those new technologies. So if I haven't interested you enough, I think Corey is going to be so much more interesting. So like I mentioned, Corey used to be an engineer at AFRL. I think he has such a great perspective on not only obviously entrepreneurship, but kind of being an inspirational leader himself, creating and fostering innovation within his own company. We've talked a lot about how his mission is kind of the core of values of his company and how he kind of takes that work culture and makes it such a successful group. So I think without further ado, no, his phone is not that there's an Apple sign on it.
It's all right, if this doesn't work now, I'm just gonna use old school way.
We can do the old school way.
Very proud, Spain.
I took the improv class this morning, so really though, all we learned how to do, I think, a lot of chicken sounds and a couple of weird other moves. So yeah, let's do old school. I'm cool with that. So I've asked Corey, like I mentioned, to just give a little bit about how he became an entrepreneur, what inspires him, what he thinks from someone who's been kind of in the seat where some of you guys are now, is sort of that barrier to adoption, innovation, rapid integration of technologies. And then we'll open it up for questions at the end so you guys can get a chance to ask him why the heck he said something and what he means by that, and I'm sure he will defend it. But we're happy to kind of continue the discussion. And go from there. So now, I believe, without further ado, Corey Cooper.
It's a pretty big crowd. You said yesterday, it's 25 or so people. So it's a nice turnout, I guess. I'm honored to be the first speaker at this. Jessica reached out to me, almost 2 months ago, and I told her, literally, she shot an email. She's like, hey, check it out. We bought 2 boards last week. I work at Dual Institute. Here's what we've got going on. We're going to start this, this meetup on Thursdays called Think Thursdays, and once a month, right? Once a month we have a guest speaker. We'd be honored if you'd be the first guest speaker. I'm like, holy shit, it's pretty cool. The only way I can commit is if you allow me to decommit 1 month out. I was like, it's just really difficult in my schedule to be able to come in and commit. And I said, look, I'll give you 1 month head notice if I want to be able to do it or not. And I said, you never know what's going to go on. But between then and now, when she contacted me, we've made the decisions to move our corporate headquarters, our warehouse operations, our retail stores, all within the last 60 days, and we're literally doing it right now. And so, last week I was like, man, it's just life. This is kind of the stuff that goes on every day in our business. So I said, yeah, I'm still in. So here I am. Like I said, I stayed with my commitment, which I think is important in any sort of business whatsoever, is to kind of keep steadfast. Now, for those of you that don't know me, like Jessica said, I'm the founder and the CEO of BOTE. BOTE, in my perspective, what we are is an outdoor lifestyle water sports company. Now, generally when I give speeches like this, I kind of like to go into the company perspective first and talk about the company and give a big overview to make sure everybody kind of knows what we're doing. And so in this case, I'm kind of going to go backwards. I really wanted to start with what you wanted as a goal here and what the mission for what the Doolittle Institute is trying to do and bring my perspective to this whole thing. to really get started. So as you can see here, when she tossed out the word think to me, I immediately, as a lot of people do, I thought back to Apple's campaign in the 80s, when it was the whole think different, where they used Albert Einstein, Bob Dylan, just a bunch of innovators is what I would call those guys, to kind of personify what their products were. And thinking on that, I was like, man, I think that's kind of the way I want to, come at this, in the entire kind of speech of mine. And she gave me two goals. One was to inspire. And, thinking in what that means to inspire, I really thought about myself. I'm like, what does it mean to be inspired? What does it mean to, want to do things? And, I thought long and hard on that. And, she said, the purpose is to inspire innovation, for everybody else to be innovative. That to me takes on its own perspective as well, because for most people in this room, they think of innovation as drones and, automated vehicles and, iPhones and just technology in general. And, when I think on innovation from my perspective, it takes on a different life. It's cultural, right? It's products, touch, feel, sense. It's the human element of what it means to be innovative. Next is collaborative. So to inspire kind of the FRL and people associated with it to be innovative and collaborative. That one sentence, to me, it really responded because it's really similar to our mission statement for our business, which I'll get to later. So I thought about it long and hard. I'm like, okay, if I was to be sitting in the room and I want to be inspired, and I want to be inspired to be innovative and collaborative, how would I like to, what kind of pitch would I like to hear? So this is, for me, is what makes it real. People all the time, they give their perspective or whatever on different things, and a lot of times about the people that are involved in it. Whether it's innovation, you walk over, you'll see a rocket, right? You'll see a new Tesla car. It's cool, it's innovative, but there's no real story to it. A lot of times you got to dig real deep to understand the story. Like Tesla, for instance, it's Elon Musk. You want to hear his story. That kind of brings out the real inspiration of what that piece of innovative, collaborative technology represents. And so what I'm trying to do today is highlight the human element in the innovation and the collaboration. Back to what I was just saying, in our brand, the way we try to inspire people is through stories. It's really challenging to go out every day and tell people, my product is better than yours because of A. My product is better than yours because of B, right? My whole background is better than yours because of this and this and this. And the way we do it is through storytelling. We tell the story of a yoga instructor using the products at her yoga class. We tell the story of a fishing guy that the product has really changed his life. Because, in my opinion, that's the stuff that humans resonate with. So today, what I'm going to try to do is basically give you a story in the form of inspiration for me that I think will respond to you guys as it relates to innovation and collaboration. I don't mean Superman, right? People see superheroes, they see, you got to pay it. We can't be Superman. We can try, but at the end of the day, this dude's got powers none of us can get. So to me, Superman, he's not a story, he's not inspiring. What is inspiring is stuff like this. This is Ernest Shackleton. I don't know if you guys know, Ernest Shackleton, but he basically was a hardcore expedition leader, excuse me, in the early 1900s that basically did the craziest shit on planet Earth. He wanted to go down and walk across the Antarctic with a team of people. Why? Because it's there. Why not? Imagine how innovative this guy had to be. There's no GPS, there's no maps. There's barely any people that would take him there. But yet, he inspired a team of people to get on a boat with him, go south, and get stuck in ice to walk across Antarctica. I mean, that's crazy as hell, but it's also inspiring. It makes everything that we're doing seem relatively easy in the sense of being innovative and collaborative. These guys got stuck their ship in an ice encapsulation when they were approaching, I believe it was out of South Georgia Island near Antarctica, and they got frozen in the ice melt that shifted for 8 months. Shackleton there was like, man, what am I going to do? We're going to be stuck on this boat. We're going to have all these crew members that are wanting to eat each other. They're wanting to kill each other. They want to kill me. I got to somehow keep these people alive while maintaining the human element of not killing each other. If you guys are interested, you should definitely check out the Shackleton stories. It's an amazing story. Next, I know a lot of you guys in this room are probably familiar with this guy. Nikola Tesla. Everybody thought he was crazy as hell. I mean, nobody would give him the time of day. What do you mean you're going to have a Tesla coil and you're going to burn shit up? What do you mean you can emit electricity through the air? You're crazy. You're crazy. He heard that his whole life. But yet his story, growing up a broke Russian immigrant, to me is inspiring. He's probably one of the greatest inventors in all time, right? And so to take lessons from him to me is important. This is Led Zeppelin, right? They're just as badass as all the other guys. In my opinion, they're just as innovative and collaborative as, some of the explorers, some of the scientists. They took bits and pieces of music that existed all over the world and made it innovative, put them together, right? Some people will call them thieves for taking pieces. Some people will call them, hardcore drug addicts. Yeah, they've got their faults, just like all of us in this room. But yet, as a unit, together, they were very collaborative. They set the tone for rock and roll basically forever. Next, one of my personal favorites, Hunter S. Thompson. This guy was basically the anti-writer. He didn't want to be the writer. And he said, this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to write like I talk, which is like a weirdo. And basically said, I'm going to be a crazy, follower of cult, underground rock, and dirt bike riding, and I'm going to be my own style. Gonzo journalist. Everybody told me he was crazy too. He's never going to be able to do it. Well, he's an icon, right? All these people have what I call kind of a cocktail of ingredients here. They all have this. They all had struggle. They all had sacrifice. They all had destruction, self-destruction, a lot of them. They all had a high level of determination, survival, endurance, and at the end, mostly, a lot of us can consider it a success. But, we're kind of going to define what that means later on. But people and stories in general that are interesting and inspire me contain this topic. I said a word earlier that I think is very interesting. To be inspired, I think something has to be obtainable. I think a lot of times when we look at people, CEOs of companies, Steve Jobs, or, big houses, whatever it may be, we just think, oh man, this is a once in a lifetime thing. This is this, or Superman. I can't be that. And so to me, for something to be inspiring, it's got to be attainable. And I think my goal with what I'm going to show you and share with our story today is that, look, all this is very attainable. It just takes certain levels of commitment, hard work, and dedication. Speaking of attainable, this probably isn't for most of us in the room. This is a badass Ferrari. Sure, we could probably all afford it, but we strap ourselves to the hilt to try to do this. It's not very inspiring. This guy's inspiring. It's Enzo Ferrari, a different Ferrari. This picture tells a completely different word than the other. And knowing the background of this guy, growing up broke, Italian, parents dying, serving World War I, a fanatical racer, the amount of energy and effort he had to put into his life to create that last picture. It's got to be amazing. Like I said earlier, all these stories in general, and myself as well, they want to be, people are going to tell you, you're going to fail. Why are you going to do that? That's stupid. I wouldn't do that. You're crazy. Hell, I do it all the time now. You tell me every day I'm crazy. I think it takes a certain level of psycho, to be willing to do these things. This is what I hate the worst at the bottom. You can't. Jesus, I probably get that. Oh, you know how much that irritates me. This is probably my CFO, by the way. When I hear the word "you can't," it's literally I flip it around and it goes, "You can't. You will do." When I hear that word. And to me, it's part of the driving success of what all these guys embody is a lot of these factors. They got to embrace it. That right there, I'm not going to say it out loud because we're live streaming. That's my answer to all those other questions and every other part of those people that buy. Now, I'm doing it. Watch this. The old redneck theory. Hey man, hold my beer. Watch this. That's what that statement is meant to evoke. Then this one, another good entrance into kind of my story, the BOTE story is people ask all the time, what's it feel like? That's what it feels like. You're standing on the edge of the cliff. You look down, you don't even know if you're wearing a shoe, much less it's going to open. You know what I mean? And you got to have that embodiment of the feeling. Anything you take on, man, it just feels like, look, I got to dive all in. There's no playing around. You're in or you're out. I remember as as a side story, before I kind of get into our story, I remember like yesterday, back to my time on the Air Force counter, my wife Maggie was like, you know, you always talk about wanting to go and do your own thing. You always talk about wanting to do this and wanting to do that. And I looked at her and I was like, yeah, you're right. It's something I've always wanted to do. We had a 9-month-old son at the time. And she said, look, if you don't do it now, when the hell are you going to do it? Boom, that was it. That was the turning point. It was like standing on a cliff and jumping off. So having said all that, we're back around to kind of why we're all here and what we're trying to do. It's kind of hear my story from an entrepreneurial standpoint, what it's taken to get the business from inception to where it's at. And overall, you know, here to inspire you guys to not start your own businesses, not have to, you know, be me or be whatever, but just, you know, to be innovative and be collaborative. I think hopefully my story will inspire at least some of that. The origins. All good stories got to start with, you know, a main character. You know, Lord of the Rings had Frodo. You know, somebody had to be the main character. And I guess in this story, it's me. So there's a picture of me with my mom. You guys are probably going to see this table for a second, but some brief bio background on me. I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi. My parents, they didn't really have a whole lot of money. You know, they weren't well off. My mom was a real badass. Don't get me wrong, we didn't have a whole lot of money, but, you know, she gave me everything she wanted to or could in that sense. And, you know, it was a real, I guess I'd call her an influencer or a, I don't want to use the word, a drug addict, or, you know, when it comes to, what's the word? Enabler. I don't want to use that word, but she was an enabler. You know, she let me destroy things, take apart radios, you name it. I mean, she'd walk into the room, my damn computer, everything would be apart on the floor. And if it was my kid, I'd probably walk in there and go, oh, you're grounded. What are you doing? She just walked in, she's like, oh, that's cool. What are you building today? So, you know, I owe a lot to her for my, you know, original background. She's part of the reason why I'm what I am. So my character traits, you know, I'm sure these guys can attest to this, but I'm probably too confident, you know, in the things that I do. Sometimes it gets me hurt. Stubborn as hell. I mean, stubborn to the nth degree. And, you know, I'm also overly generous, probably to a fault. You know, I've got myself in a lot of problems, extending myself too far for a lot of people or, you know, situations, bending over backwards too many times for the wrong people. You know, it's a character flaw. I don't want to call it a flaw, but it's a character trait. I'm selfish, you know, in the sense that for me, it's more about time than it is things. You know, it's not a cooler, it's not a car, it's just time. And I want to achieve so much that I think one of my biggest, you know, negative traits is that selfishness. Time, but I also think it's really helped make our business what it is. I'm a gambler, not in the money sense, but you know, I'll take a risk. And I think that's important in being an entrepreneur because it's I mean, everything's a risk. You can calculate all you want, but at the end of the day, it's gut instinct. And I think being a gambler, especially when it comes to being innovative, is a big, huge upside. And it's funny enough, I don't gamble with money at all. You know, we'll go to the casinos, my wife can't get me to gamble. I go, hell no, I gamble every single day. I'm not gambling today. It's too much. Control, you know, I kind of seek control. I want control. And when I don't feel like I'm in control, I kind of really don't like the situation. And a lot of times I just distance myself from it. You know, if it's throwing a party that I'm not in control of, I might not know. You know, I know it sounds kind of weird. Again, sometimes it's a good trait, sometimes it's bad. I mean, I'll say, you know, whatever. There's zero filter. I mean, it just comes straight out. And so, you know, that's a trait of mine. I'm also inclusive. You know, if we have to get together or if we're doing things, I like to include as many people as possible. My wife hates it because if we're going to dinner together, like, what's like so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so? She's like, dude, can we just go by ourselves? Like, there's too many people involved all the time. But, you know, I think, again, in the team atmosphere, it's actually made it a good trait of mine. So I want to lay out kind of my character traits here so you guys can understand some background to what it was that composed the person that helped build this story. This is funny, man. My mom still's got this picture framed, and I wish I could have got it from her, but you know when you're a little kid and they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, you want to be a fireman, you want to be a doctor, when you had a little write a little essay. Well, I wrote a book, And what I wanted to be when I grew up was the best. That was it. Like, they were like, well, what do you want to be the best at? I mean, just the best. And I think it's funny to this day because my wife, she calls it a competitive fire that I've got. And whether it's, I don't know, taking a math test or building a business, I want to be the best. And, I mean, it's a good trait, I guess I'd call it. But at the same time, I mean, it's sometimes really consuming, wanting to do everything to the nth degree. Now, don't confuse me with perfect. I don't want to be perfect. I'm the exact opposite of perfect. I think sometimes those two balance with each other, especially in business. You can't achieve perfect because you'll never get anything done. You'll be sitting there all day long messing around instead of just moving forward. And so I still actually use this as my own personal motivation. Not calling myself the best, but just striving to be the best. And I kind of set those own goals in my head. So after childhood, I went to Auburn University where I got a degree in mechanical engineering. It was a fantastic university, had a great time there. I chose Auburn over some of the other schools like Georgia Tech just because of the style of the degree that they had. It was real hands-on. It was real, especially for mechanical, it was less theory, more execution at school there. Had a fantastic time partying, went to all the football games, whole 9 yards. Last day of college, graduation night, I actually met my wife, believe it or not. We attended college for 4 years. She swam there, never met each other. We were in a bar that night, drinking, basically, and I met her. Since then, I don't think we've spent 20 nights apart. Well, unless I travel all the time, then I'm apart. But on normal occasions, it's been that long. So I owe a lot to Auburn. My career, my kids owe a lot to Auburn too. We've got 3 kids because of Auburn. So you guys have mentioned my time after Auburn. I ended up getting a job again, a lot of connections. I ended up getting a job down here on Eglin, where I started working contractor for successfully. One of the guys that hired me basically had a job description out at Auburn for engineers. And at the time, I was actually working at a textile machine factory in West Point, Georgia, where I was one of the 4 engineers that were on machine projects that had 1 million parts. We were making these machines, sitting all over the world. I was there for roughly 2 years, and the production, the textile industry basically just dried up, and so they were starting to let go of their engineering department. However, it was extremely fast-paced, extreme learned trial by fire. I mean, literally, I'm tossed into this. They have no one in their entire company that knows how to 3D model. Nobody in their entire company that knows how to design. These guys are basically, in their 70s at the time. And so they didn't use computers. They had people that would do their emails for them. And so I'm in this environment where, the owner was a young guy. He was like 35 years old at the time. He's like, dude, if you can solve a model, you're the man. You're putting all this together, packaging and designing it. So by default, I became the guy on the shop floor, managing the assemblies, managing the parts. And, it was a great time. It was, a birth by fire. But from there, I came down here. And I came to a job that actually, like I said, working for the 46 Test Wing was a cool job. We did a lot of some of the weapons testing stuff. Customers would bring down, anything from the ICBMs to machine guns, and we designed a lot of test apparatus and systems and infrastructure. Cool projects, really cool projects. I enjoyed them. The thing that got to me was some of these words that was here. Slow. I just felt the pace could have been triple, could have been quadruple what it was, and still achieved the same thing at the same money. Both. And I remember having to buy a generator for a project. It took 4 days. And I'm like, shit, we can just get up, walk right next door, and go buy one of these things. It got to me. Robotic, this is the way you do it. This is the way you do it. This is the way you do it. Back to the opening statement, like, does anybody think? Can't we just think of a different way to do this? And not that the people weren't thinking, I don't mean that in any negative light. It just seems as the overarching structure in general that it forced that robotics. Sterile. I think that's a word that this environment doesn't embody. This is a badass environment. It's a cool environment. It's got some character. It's got a lot of different things. I just felt like it was very sterile. From a personality standpoint. I worked with awesome people. Don't get me wrong. People were kick ass. They still are. I was partying in a bar with one of them in Destin the other night. But just in terms of like, it's hard to put my finger on it, but the culture, the work environment, the work-life balance, the way that we treated work was very sterile. It was like on, off, boom. You know, and to me, man, it's hard to, get emotionally connected to something when that was kind of the environment. So, for me, to that statement, I've always been a product and a brand guy. I've really enjoyed what people and businesses have done with product outside of just a pure product. I listed a couple of brands up here that I like. That none of them in reality make the most innovative things on planet Earth. At all. Apple, you might think they do. Porsche makes badass cars. Gibson's making those iconic guitars on the planet. But to me, it's more than that. It's about the story. It's about the culture. It's about the brand. That's what I felt was missing at my time in the Air Force. Was that. I don't know if it makes sense or not, but it's just that like identification with something. You know what I mean? Like you stand for something. And it just, for me, this has been what I've always been about from day one in things. So the chapter one of the BOTE story was, like I said earlier, it was the crossroads. It was, all right, what do? Do I keep working here? Because it was a successful career. Could have stayed there forever, probably advanced, probably done some other things. Do I take this opportunity now to go and strive to achieve what I wanted to? As I mentioned earlier, obviously, this was a cliff. I took the jump. And this is my start. So this is my attempt at achieving what the prior slide was. A story, a brand that's innovative, that brings different things and different meaning to people's lives, but also something that people can connect with, both internally and externally. This is our brand story, stand apart. It's something I came up with, in the early days of BOTE as a literal meaning for, your stand-up pattern, right? But let's do it on something different. Let's do it on something cool. And stand apart initially kind of blossomed in my head like that. Then I started thinking about it more and more and more when I kind of, an inception, and I'm like, man, it means so much more. It means so much more than just, hey, I'm standing on paddleboard, I'm different. It meant to be inclusive, to have this lifestyle, to, do something that I've always wanted to do, to take a different perspective on. And that's kind of been our brand statement from day one. And it actually led to the development of our mission statement, which I'll hit up shortly. It's a picture of my crazy self on the other right, my beautiful wife on the left. We are the two founders of BOTE. It's funny because we bring two similar but very distinctly different personalities. I'm an engineer, but I'm also kind of a different set of engineer. I'm a little goofy, wacky, zany. She, was a financial advisor in her prior career. She's very, collected. She's very calculated. She, in her past, she was a swimmer, a distance swimmer. That was an incredible swimmer, won 4 national championships in college. So she's got that real athletic side of things, but also that financial calculated side of things. Myself, I like to party a little bit, I like to go crazy sometimes, that's what she calls it. I'm a little bit out there, in a good way, not crazy way. And so, if you could illustrate this picture as the yin and the yang, that's exactly what it is. We brought two different personalities to the business too in the beginning. It was her that would kind of hold back that risk taker element and be like, oh, screw it, just throw it all on there. All of that, just bring it all on. She's like, maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe we should have this before we do this. And it was very important. Like I said, I'm throwing out kind of these really loosey-goosey ideas without any hardcore tangible evidence. But if it wasn't for this two combo, BOTE wouldn't be where it's at. We started it, I joke at putting a negative in front of that number. We literally started it with -$0. When I say -0, I mean like we probably owed $20,000 in credit cards at the time of starting it. We took out our 401ks, which I think was worth about 11 grand. I remember going around, we'd had a few prototypes at the time, and we were going around showing people, hey man, you interested in this? You want to invest in this? What the hell is that? what is this, like a hobby or something? No, here's what it's going to be. Here's the idea. Here's the whole blah, blah, blah. Hey, what about you, man? You interested? Dude, no. Or, yeah, I'll give you, 20 grand for 95% of the business. You want to do the hard work. We went through that for 2 or 3 months. Finally, I'm like, man, screw it. It's just going to have to be the hard work. You're just going to have to figure out how to slum it. You know what I mean? You're going to have to figure out how to get through the hard times, how to basically turn one penny into $100 to be able to advance, to be able to grow a business, to be able to scale a business. And you want to talk about innovative? This is no iPhone. This is no light bulb. This is no figuring out how to turn nothing into money is the epitome of having to be innovative. It's hard for me to even rack my brain about how we had to do it in the beginning. I wish I had my phone working. I can flip through some slides here. In the beginning, it was me making everything. I mean, from the design, I model everything in design, in SolidWorks and 3D. Then, have to negotiate with suppliers on, payment terms of all the raw materials and products. Have to lie to people on the phone. They call in and they go, "Oh, what do you think your future forecast order is going to be?" I'm like, "1." They're like, "No, we need to know because we have to be able to build a relationship in terms of forecasting, projecting." And like, "Look, dude, it's little. Let's take a step back. Here's, so literally we were making one at a time. And amazingly, before I would have one done, it would be sold. That was the beauty of it. However, scaling still was relatively impossible. No help, nobody to help out, no way to pay people to help out, no way to afford buildings really to do this in. I started in a garage underneath Mellow Mushroom and Destin. The good news is bartenders are my friends, so I could go up there, in the afternoon after slaving away, freaking sanding boards and shaping and painting fumes and stuff. Like, dude, I need beer. They hooked me up. So they were nice. They were a lot of nice. Just a few more images of the slaving away, going this crap. Talking about being innovative, one of our products that we make, one of the things that sets our products apart, you guys can see it in some of the catalogs on the tables, is this feature called the tack rack that we slip into our boards. It's an aluminum part. It's 3/4 Schedule 40 aluminum tube, 18 feet long worth. And I remember when I designed it, and I was getting estimates around here to make it, people were like, "Man, that's gonna be about $250." Like, dude, we can sell this for like 200. But no. Okay, what if I ordered 1,000? Oh, okay, we're at $195. Like, dude, it's not that much. The raw aluminum is like $16 for this. The amount of paint on this is nothing. Powder coating these things, it's nothing. We're like, well, you get the man hours and sitting with the dies and the fixtures and all this. And I remember specifically telling some guys, "Watch this bullshit. I'm going to make these for $25 on my own, and your 190 is ridiculous. You're going to lose a lot of money, right?" So I built a jig out of plywood, and I remember ordering all the raw material and cutting them as fast as I could. I would bend these things with my bare hands around plywood jigs. I know it sounds crazy now, but I'd bend the whole thing. Then I borrowed a buddy's aluminum welder. I would weld them all up, and then basically developed a powder coating oven myself for free, and would powder coat this whole thing. And it's funny because I want to call the guy back now that I bought them from in the beginning. We made, 150,000 of them since we started, and have been like, "Man, if you'd only sold them to me for X amount of dollars, we'd have had a shitload of money." But anyways, being innovative, it was, that's part of it, man, hard work. Not willing to belittle yourself, because I'm like, here I am, I'm a mechanical engineering grad. I would ask myself tonight, I go home and I'm like, "Maggie, what the hell am I doing? I'm bending aluminum with my bare hands. Isn't that why I went to college? So I didn't have to do that?" She goes, "Yeah, but what's your other option? You know what I mean? You've got no alternative. So either suck it up, stop crying. You can cry when you're dead. So just hurry up. Let's go." We had to, uniquely enough, find time to be inclusive of family here as well. Like I mentioned earlier, we had a young kid. He was 1 year old when we started the business, and so we had to be able to wrap this business into our family as much as it was a business. And I'm going to try to start speeding up because I'm running a little late here. But that's my wife and son. We needed to make this, like I said, a family business. This is my wife and I, actually on the photo shoot. We try to involve ourselves personally as much of the collateral photography and branding as we can, because again, it's important. A brand, in my opinion, are people, they're identities, they're an extension of that. And it takes a lot of work. I mean, people think photo shoots are glamorous. This photo shoot was 18 hours, just to go do a photo shoot for a product. And it takes up a lot of your time to do this. And to me, I think that's one of the biggest balances and challenges with being an entrepreneur is that time management and putting it all in. When I went to Auburn, I remember the creed that they always pounded in your head, and I didn't really get it at the time, was, I believe in work, hard work. That's part of their creed. And, I'm just like, man, everybody believes in work. You got to work to get where you're going. I can tell you right now that hard work took on a whole different definition for me when I started my own business. I mean, you're talking 19-hour days for 9 years. You know what I mean? No exaggeration. And if you include the travel time and transit time as part of that, I think the first 4 months of this year, I was out of the office 70% of the time, nonstop. Just working, going, morning and night, and it wears on. But it's part of the equation. You can't go forward without it. Back to that opening statement, for me, now we're getting to the human thing. For me, innovation, it doesn't necessarily equal adaptation, but it's part of it, being adaptable, being willing to do different things. Being able to look at something and say, why don't we approach it this way, right? It's not a part, it's not a piece, it's not it's not a new iPhone. It's a different way of approaching something. It's being creative, right? It's adapting. To me, that's what has really been the leading success in our business, is the way to adapt. And if you're not adaptable, I think I told Robbie one of his first weeks in the job, it's almost 2 years. So, dude, you gotta be elastic, get in like dummy. Because if you're in here and you come in and you go, man, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is blah blah blah, we're all see ya. You know what I mean? It's not cookie cutter, especially in such a small business like we are. Again, I think another part of innovation is that the people that do it well, to innovate, really, it's to answer the question why. It's why. They didn't make a wheel to make a wheel. It's why. And it's a means to an end of the equation. And to me, it's like this amoeba, this ether that just floats through different situations. And it's really there to answer the question, why? This is the answer to our question, why? Again, like I said earlier, it's to stand apart. Our mission statement is to stand apart, finish reshaping innovation, fresh ideas, and simplicity to create a product that defines lifestyle. It may sound very arbitrary, but every single word in that statement was thought about a long time. My creative director and I built this like 5 years ago. It took us a week on and off of tossing it back and forth in terms of being selective with the words we wanted in there, because you'll notice, it's a product. It doesn't say stand-up paddleboard. It says simplicity. It doesn't say complex. I think it balances the word innovation extremely well. Fresh ideas to me are just looking at something, not ignoring the obvious. A lot of times people will walk by something and they just keep walking by it and looking at it and just going, oh, what if we just did that? You know what I mean? And it's those little tweaks on things that to me make products different and make businesses different and make situations different. And we were proud of mission statement. I think it's we call it the meat grinder for our business, right? If ideas or if products or people or situations don't fit in that, grind them out. A lot of times, I think the hardest one to keep control of is simplicity, right there. Man, you'll get in a situation, you'll just look at it, and you're like, shit, this is not simple at all. We just need to back out. This is stupid. What are we doing? This is supposed to be easy by definition. DNA. So the business, I think, is part of our DNA. I got a lot of slides here to just kind of illustrate, again, people. The people, in most of these photos and the products, these are all ambassadors of ours, employees of ours. It's our creative director. He's the guy that helped us define the mission statement. That's one of our ambassadors. Another close person who's been in a lot of our stories and stuff over the years. This is our Florida sales rep. So this is the guy that goes around Florida selling all of our products. This is me and Magda driving another photo shoot. This is Magda fishing on the rover in the Keys. So I think you guys can see it, but hopefully, in a quick enough time, I think my goal there was just kind of, illustrate how authentic and how, kind of ingrained the products and the businesses kind of in the people that are there. Now, the next step in any business example, but for us is, expansion. The challenge is, okay, I've got this embryo. This embryo contains this DNA that you can closely connect to the people that are there, right? You look around the room, and most of the people in the beginning were all huge advocates of the product. They used it. They were part of the creation. We're building a product, and whether they're the shipping manager, the creative director, or whoever, they're part of it. Like, yeah, cool. We'd all go out together and paddle in the evenings or go to events. So the challenge becomes, okay, how do you keep this authentic, organic company and infrastructure and expand from there? We started with retail. And retail for, most reasons for this room, it was margins. When you sell direct consumer, especially consumer goods, you're getting double the margin as if you're selling to the wholesale and they're selling to retail. So we went direct consumer first through our flagship stores and through our e-commerce. It's some humble beginnings. This is the first retail store, which was in the warehouse of the spot we were making the track. This was probably week 2. It's funny to look back on this. I got pictures of my son jumping around on things, but we couldn't keep the boards here. I mean, I'd make them, they'd come out, boom, see it, gone. So we went from there, a little website, to this is kind of just a look of our store in Destin right now. But we've got 3 separate retail stores of our own, one in Fort Walton, one in Great Beach, one in Destin. And then we have 8 licensed retail stores kind of all over the United States right now. But the purpose of, and then the helpfulness of retail was the fact that we were controlling our exposure. We were able to go out there and do all the marketing ourselves. We were doing all the digital marketing ourselves. It really helped us control the awareness as well, because we would go to trade shows where we're selling direct to consumers. We could pick the people with our finite amount of product that we had, which, by the way, we're even this year, we're out of product. You don't have stuff that can just go everywhere. So we had to be strategic. If we were, sponsoring somebody, we had to make sure they were the right guy. So we would, seed the product with the right guy to make sure, hey, this guy represents culture, business, brand, using the best for us. And we felt that we controlled the authenticity the best. I know a lot of our competitors that started up, they came from a different channel. They came from windsurf, or they came from surf, or they came from, kayak. And they said, hey, this is a cool market. Let's get into that. We are one of the only organic stand-up paddleboard companies that started with stand-up paddle as our DNA. And I think that's important for the authenticity of the brand. Next, we took it from retail, which is kind of the opposite way most companies go. Most companies will start with wholesale. And for those of you that aren't familiar with wholesale, it's basically a 3-tier model. So you've got a manufacturer who then sells to basically your outfitter stores. So you got your mom and pop specialty shops, you got your big outdoor shops like Bass Pro, REI, West Marine, and then you got your consumer, right? That's the retail. So we transitioned to a wholesale model where we're still going to maintain our retail stores, but go to wholesale. The challenge of wholesale is the margins are half that of retail. So you're basically having to quadruple your production, your money investment. You're taking all this risk to make all this profit, and the people in turn are paying you half. You're making half the profit off of it so that they can make the profit selling it to retail. This has been a model for years in the United States, and luckily for us, we wouldn't have gotten to the point where we're out retail because it's the only thing that helped us fund the business. So getting into wholesale, this is what the growth basically looked like. Retail, it's not hard to scale retail, but it was just the first few years we were making everything we could make and selling everything we could sell. It helped us fund the ability to go to wholesale. The beauty in the beginning with wholesale was we weren't giving people terms. Phrase that right. Meaning, traditionally, people would give retailers 30 days, 45 days, 90 days. We didn't have that option. You want our stuff, you got to pay up front. You want 40 boards, it's going to be $50,000, right? Cash. It's the only way we're selling to them. And people were real receptive to it because we were creating a great product and a great brand. And it helped us fund the business. It's funny, I'll tell you later, it's actually the inverse now. When you start getting big, you start loaning money and doing all that kind of stuff. But, growth presented its challenges. We're nationwide, so this is kind of a little scattered sprinkling of our wholesale accounts. These are mom and pop retailers. These are, I think this is void in the box stores, but these are kind of a representation of who they are, where they're at, and who's selling our stuff in the wholesale model. I think there's just some slides there. Yeah, so the wholesale model took the expansion question, took people. In retail, we didn't really have to have that big of an ecosystem in the beginning. You know, it's myself, Magda, a brand guy, some shipping people, you know, inbound, outbound type stuff, retail store managers, accountants, you know, stuff on that level. You could keep it real tight. When we went to wholesale,